Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about what wrongful convictions are. This week, you had to read an article called The Staggering Number of Wrongful Convictions in America, written by Samuel R. Gross. And you found out that in paragraph 1, he actually edits something called the National Registry of Exonerations. And that is a website that you can go to. We will actually have an assignment over this website in a couple of weeks when we get to our book. But here, they hold all the data and all the information about every exoneration in the country. And up in the right-hand corner, they always keep a total of how many exonerations there have been since 1989. Right now, we're looking at 2,632. So today, we're going to go over this PowerPoint. What are wrongful convictions? This information came from a piece from the LA Times by John Grisham. Here is a link to that article if you want to take a look at it. So the definition of a wrongful conviction. It's a conviction of a person accused of a crime which in the result of subsequent investigation proves erroneous, containing or characterized by an error. It's when persons who are in fact innocent but who have been wrongfully convicted by a jury or other court of law. It is estimated that the rate of wrongful convictions in the U.S. is 2 to 10%. Now that might seem low, but our prison population is at 2.3 million, so that 2 to 10% is 46,000 to 230,000 people who could very well be innocent. Once an innocent person is convicted, it is next to impossible to get them out of prison. John Grisham, he is the author if you know his books, serves on the board of directors for the Innocence Project. They help release innocent people through DNA testing. They have released 349 men and women, 20 who were on death row. And like I just showed you, we're at 2,600 right now on the National Registry of Exonerations. So we're going to look at several different reasons why wrongful convictions happen. Now, a lot of these, when we talk about wrongful convictions, they're part of a criminal case, not a civil case. And to give you an idea of what that means, think about the O.J. Simpson trial. Okay, he was charged with the murder of his ex-wife and her friend. The trial was televised. Maybe you remember seeing pictures of when he had to put on the glove and things like this. So he was charged. So if he had been found guilty, he would have gone to prison or the death penalty. But he was found innocent. But her family sued him in a civil trial, and he was found guilty of actually committing her death, and so he had to pay her family a large sum of money, which I don't believe he ever fully paid off. Okay, so that's the difference between a civil and a criminal trial. Criminal trial, you will go to jail if found guilty. Civil is basically usually a monetary award. So reason number 1, bad police work. Most cops are innocent, hardworking professionals, but some have been known to hide, alter, or fabricate evidence, lie on the witness stand, cut deals with snitches to return for bogus testimony, intimidate and threaten witnesses, coerce confessions, or manipulate eyewitness identifications. And here's a clip of a news article from Baltimore, in which a police officer did not realize his body cam was still on. And so it recorded him planting drug evidence so that he could arrest someone who was innocent. So you can either stop this video and go watch that, or watch this after you get done with this video. Reason number 2, prosecutorial misconduct. Most prosecutors are also hard-working, honest professionals, but some have been known to hide exculpatory evidence, encourage witnesses to commit perjury, lie to jurors, judges, and defense lawyers, use the testimony of bogus experts, or ignore relevant evidence beneficial to the accused. Once convicted, one of the ways to get an appeal in your case is to show that there was a Brady violation. This stems from the court case Brady versus Maryland, where it was found that the prosecution withheld exculpatory evidence from the defense, and that prevents a person to have due process in a court of law. Exculpatory evidence being evidence which tends to justify or exonerate an accused person's actions and tends to show that they had a lack of criminal intent. Most likely, if the defense had the evidence at trial, the defendant would have been found not guilty. So if that defendant had that information, presented it to the jury more than likely would have found them not guilty. All right, so if you're a prosecutor wanting to win your case, a lot of times they have withheld that evidence because they want to win their case more than actually get the right person. Number 3, false confessions. Most jurors find it impossible to believe that a suspect would confess to a serious crime he didn't commit. Yet the average citizen, if taken to a basement room and subjected to 10 consecutive hours of abusive interrogation tactics by experienced cops, might be surprised at what they would say. Of the 330 people who were exonerated by DNA evidence between 1989 to 2015, about 25% gave bogus confessions after lengthy interrogations. Almost everyone recanted soon after. A couple of good examples can be found on Netflix. The first one is from Making a Murderer. In this case, Stephen Avery actually was convicted of a crime that he did not commit. He was exonerated, but then they charged him with the murder of a woman. And in charging him, they used a confession by his nephew. Now, his nephew has a very low IQ, meaning that he did not understand what was going on when they interviewed him. They also did not allow his mother to be present or any other child advocate to be in the room while they talked to this minor. And when they told him, if you tell us this, we will let you go, he believed that. All he thought he would have to do is say these words, have these words come out of his mouth, whether they were true or not, and they would just let him go. He didn't realize what was happening in that situation. And so many people have been advocating for that nephew's release as well as Stephen Avery's, and season 1 will explain the case, and then season 2 will explain the appeals process. Very interesting stuff. Also on Netflix is a show called The Confession Tapes, and these are various cases of where people have confessed to crimes that they did not commit. And another question to think about with this is, are police allowed to lie to you in interrogations? They are. Number 4, faulty eyewitness confessions. More often than not, those who witness violent acts have trouble accurately recalling the facts and identifying those involved. Physical and photo lineups may exacerbate the problem because police manipulate them to focus suspicion on favored suspects. Many people who were found innocent never even looked like the eyewitness composite that was used to identify them. And we'll get more into this when we get to our book in a couple of weeks, when we talk about how the victim chose to identify her attacker from a photo lineup as well as a physical lineup. Number 5, jailhouse niches. In every jail, there is a career criminal staring at a long sentence. For leniency, he can be persuaded to lie to the jury and describe in great detail the confession overheard from the accused, usually a cellmate. If he performs well enough on the stand, the authorities might allow him to walk free. They can lie on the stand and say they aren't getting a deal because they won't get that deal until after they have testified on the stand. And if the only evidence a prosecution has for charging a person is a jailhouse snitch, will you believe in the defendant's guilt? And if you were just arrested for a crime, would you be talking to strangers in jail about how you are guilty? So those are some things to think about, especially with jailhouse snitches. It's, if you're innocent, why would you suddenly start talking to people about how you're guilty? But unfortunately, they are used to wrongfully convict people. Reason number 6, bad lawyering. Those accused of serious crimes rarely have money. Many are represented by good public defenders, but too many get stuck with court-appointed lawyers with little or no experience. Capital cases are complex, and the stakes are enormous. All too often, the defense lawyers are in over their heads, and a lot of times they end up looking for a plea deal, even if it's an innocent person. Another way to get your case on appeal after a conviction is to show that you had ineffective assistance of counsel, meaning your lawyer did not do their job by ignoring evidence that would have shown your innocence. And there's a great podcast called Serial Season 1 about the Anansi Egg case, and this is one of the big points of contention in his appeal, is that his lawyer never talked to his alibi witnesses. Number 7, sleeping judges. Judges are supposed to be impartial referees intent on ensuring fair trials. They should exclude confessions that are inconsistent with the physical evidence and obtained by questionable means, exclude the testimony of career felons with dubious motives, require prosecutors to produce exculpatory evidence, and question the credentials and testimony of all experts outside the presence of the jury. Unfortunately, judges do not always do what they should. The reasons are many and varied, but the fact that many judges are elected doesn't help. They are conscious of their upcoming re-election campaigns and how the decisions they make might affect the results of those judges who are appointed rather than elected, the majority or former prosecutors. So there's a lot of problems here with judges where they're not always doing what they should. A lot of judges won't look at the evidence or professionals who are supposed to come in, experts, and so they just simply say, well, I'll just leave it to the jury. And usually the jury, they can't make those kind of determinations. That's why the judges are there to make those for them. Also, when they're elected officials, they're not going to want to make decisions in a case that is going to mean that they won't get reelected. And the other thing to remember is what we said for reason number 2 on wrongful convictions about prosecutorial misconduct. If there's a lot of judges who used to be former prosecutors, how many of those former prosecutors have Brady violations because they withheld evidence from the defense? And to be quite honest, if they have a Brady violation, it doesn't really mean too much. They don't go to jail or anything like that. It's a violation. Prosecutors plus police have a lot of coverage so that they are never found guilty of anything, and that's another reason why we have so many problems in our criminal justice system. I am going to stop this video here, and we will look at the last reason for wrongful conviction in video number 2.